in a new Fox News poll, it's a legitimate poll that was released on Wednesday. Let's go to the graphic for that, TB09. Bernie Sanders, shocker, came out as the most favorable person or entity that was polled in America. 61% of Americans find Bernie Sanders favorable, only 32%. Unfavorable, 12%. Unfavorable, somewhat unfavorable. Planned Parenthood comes in second at 57%, which I want to go back to in a second. The 2010 healthcare, Obamacare, 50%. So half of America right now is in favor of Obamacare. Mike Pence, I don't understand this one as much, comes out above Elizabeth Warren at 47%. Elizabeth Warren's at 39%. Of course, Donald Trump's ratings, his poll numbers are all over the place. And Paul Ryan, which is going to be, the author of the formerly known Ryan Care, is at 37%. But what I find fascinating about this is Planned Parenthood, because in the primary, I don't know if you guys recall this, but in the Republican primary, there were pro-choice voters who were being polled and they were supporting Donald Trump, and they would justify it by saying, well, we know he's really pro-choice and not pro-life, but we're still gonna vote for him. And that is very unique to history, because generally speaking, in the Republican primary, these voters have voted on pro-life issues, which is why I think we as Democrats need to pay attention to the shift that Republicans have made in supporting candidates, or are going to be making, in supporting candidates that are not single issue candidates or Christian coalition candidates. Instead of being Christian coalition in their identity politics first, they're going to economics first. The difference is our party has not caught up. The Democrats have not caught up. Bernie Sanders, of course, ran on an economic message, which, if you listen to MLK's writings, all racial injustice is rooted in economic injustice. That's what I like to throw in the faces of identity politics Democrats. But this is, I think, very revealing. When you have Planned Parenthood, over half of Americans are supporting Planned Parenthood at a time when Republicans are looking to strip it. They already have stripped it from states. And of course, Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in the country. And Hillary Clinton not on the list.
Okay, so this poll has 18 different fascinating things. First, let's note that a Fox News poll has Bernie Sanders at number one, yes. Planned Parenthood at number two.
Very, very poignant.
Now, understand though, they're not polling their own audience. Sometimes they do those ridiculous unscientific polls on their websites where they pretend like it's real. When we do unscientific polls on my nickname, we know it's not real, right? So, but this is a real poll, and it is a scientific one, and apparently they did it honestly, and look at the results they got. So that's amazing. Number two, a separate poll had come out very recently at the end of last week about Hillary Clinton's approval rating. 35%. Bernie Sanders at 61%. So can we put this debate aside? And no matter how many polls they see like this, it could be 100 and a 0. I know guys who are establishment Democrats, and they don't view themselves as establishment Democrats. Some of them do, some of them don't. And some of the folks are not establishment Democrats, but they bought into that line of thinking. And they still think, no, Bernie Sanders would have lost. Hillary Clinton would have done better than Bernie Sanders. You're nuts, dude. We're not that far removed from the election. She's at 35%, he's at 61%. Because real people think he would stick up for them. He looks like a real person, he acts like a real person. He's been honest for 40 years straight. I know for you, if you grew up in an older generation, you think, no, politician has to look slick, they have to read from a prompter, and they have to be fake, and this guy who's not fake couldn't have possibly won. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Bernie Sanders would have won, and he's now enormously popular and way more popular than Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton.
The thing that infuriates me is you have these numbers, and this poll follows other polls, yet the media continues to put Clintonites on TV, Clintonites in print. John Podesta just got a columnist position for the Washington Post. For what? You just lost to a reality TV star. Jennifer Palmieri was on Chuck Todd's show saying, oh, don't confuse these resistance marches around the country. Don't confuse it with, oh, all these people want a $15 minimum wage.
Unbelievable.
Right. You don't see, as these poll numbers rise up, you're not seeing progressives represented in the media. And the Washington Post, by the way, their headline today for this was, Bernie Sanders remains one of the most popular politicians in America.
No, not one of, the most popular.
By far.
And we didn't say that. Fox News said that.
And they wrote it 16 times.
And he's a socialist.
And this is not. And the Fox News poll was not just among Democrats. There's no hidden agenda here. They've got him way above Donald Trump, Mike Pence, Paul Ryan. Small side note, also interesting how unpopular Paul Ryan is because he's lost to Trump voters and he never had the Democrats in the first place. That's interesting. And I'm surprised at Elizabeth Warren's numbers at 39%. I would have thought that it was bad. But they both also suffer from the fact that a lot of people are in the category of don't know who they are, right? So you have to keep that in mind. Still, I would have expected better numbers there.
Well, there's also one thing that goes back to the media. The fact that Mike Pence is this popular, they've been making Mike Pence look like this delicate flower. Right. Oh, he wasn't informed about Mike Flynn. No. Mike Pence literally left a poor Latino and black community to fend for itself that was lead poisoned while going to a white community months earlier and fixing it in 2 months. Did you see that on CNN? No, you saw it on TYT Politics, youtube.com/TYT Politics. Between the religious freedom bill that everybody seems to forget about that he tried to push. The media covers these folks as if, they're honorable gentlemen, like my colleague over there says. No, Mike Pence is as radical as Paul Ryan, but the majority of people don't know it because he's not covered that way.
And by the way, just real quick, he's only 3 points above Trump. He's also deeply unpopular, and he's 3 points below Obamacare. And we were told Obamacare is a disaster and it's failing. If Obamacare is failing, then Mike Pence and Donald Trump are failing much, much harder. Look at what they say about what people want out of a Trump presidency. Okay, if the way they frame the question is really interesting. If Trump could only do one thing, what would you want him to do? The biggest winner by far was, now if you're a real person, you already know the answer and you're not gonna be surprised. Jobs, right? 33% said jobs, create jobs. 23% coming in number 2 would want him to destroy the Islamic State. Okay, now I think that he's in a lot of trouble there because that's a hell of a thing to do and unlikely to be able to get that done, and hence people are gonna get disappointed. But okay, but it's real, they do want that, it is a high priority for them. 10% want him to cut taxes. So when you see people like, oh no, you'll see all over TV, people voted for him to cut taxes on the rich. Only 10% say that's the number 1 priority. 9% say they would like him to repeal and replace Obamacare, also not anywhere near as large as create jobs. And only 3% want him to reduce federal regulations. So that's what businesses want. That's what multinational corporations want. Real human beings are like, cut what regulations? There's not a lot of regulations that apply to me. There's a lot that apply to giant businesses. And this is interesting, only 3% want him to build a border wall. Now, as their top priority, it doesn't mean only 3% want it overall, but as their top priority, only 3% put it in that category. So be careful what the media tells you. It might not necessarily be so. In reality, and Trump is also misled on this. He thinks wall and this and that. In reality, what people want is jobs. So you're out there cutting taxes on the rich and deregulating, you're making your donors happy. But that political story does not end well for you if you're ignoring the number 1 priority people actually voted for.
Can I also just note how amused I am that the least popular politician is apparently Paul Ryan? Because it relates to what we were talking about earlier, which is that this idea that the Republican voter base is so wholeheartedly behind things like entitlement reform and deficit hawk-oriented politics is just disproven constantly, in part by this poll, because what is Paul Ryan associated with? He's associated with fiscal conservatism and cutting and social spending and that sort of thing, whereas Trump less so. So Paul Ryan's unpopularity and his inability to connect with the segment of the Trump base just shows how unpopular overall that sort of agenda is, which is why Trump really doesn't, in a political sense, have to capitulate fully to that agenda, but all the pressure is coming on him from the Republican Party establishment to do so.
So that's a great point by Michael. So again, on TV, they always tell you, oh, now Paul Ryan's a real conservative. Okay, then apparently people don't like real conservatives. And in reality, what do we tell you? He actually represents the donors more than almost any politician in the country. And so now you might not know that sitting in the middle of Nebraska or whatever, and you might not know all the details, but you got a sense of it. You got a gut sense that guy's part of the elites and not for us. Right. So no matter how much the Koch brothers put money behind Paul Ryan, we still, you have figured out he's not for us.
We already hired 1 investigative reporting team thanks to you guys. Let's hire the second right now. Go to tytnetwork.com/go.